إنا نحن نزلنا عليك القرآن تنزيلا فاصبر لحكم ربك ولا تطع منهم آثما أو كفورا واذكر اسم ربك بكرة وأصيلا ومن الليل فاسجد له وسبحه ليلا طويلا إن هؤلاء يحبون العاجلة ويذرون وراءهم يوما ثقيلا نحن خلقناهم وشددنا أسرهم وإذا شئنا بدلنا أمثالهم تبديلا إن هذه تذكرة فمن شاء اتخذ إلى ربه سبيلا وما تشاءون إلا أن يشاء الله إن الله كان عليما حكيما يدخل من يشاء في رحمته 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 والظالمين أعد لهم عذابا أليما 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 صدق الله العظيم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله رب العالمين.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Inshallah, just before we start our Jummah, just a few announcements. The new school building will be opening today. Inshallah, right after the Jummah, we invite all of you guys to walk over there, and they're going to be cutting the ribbon. This is a huge milestone for the masjid. They've been working on this for a long time, and to continue serving Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, so please join us. Next thing we have is Ramadan iftar potlucks. So these will be every Friday and Saturday for every week of Ramadan except this week. This week we only have them on Saturday, inshallah. And then from here on out, we're going to have it on Friday and Saturday. As well as our 15th annual outreach dinner this Sunday. This Sunday between 5 and 7 p.m. This outreach dinner is to invite our non-Muslim friends, neighbors, and colleagues, inshallah, to invite them out here and give them a little bit of da'wah about Islam and show them around and how the masajids work it and all of that. Right? The next thing we have is our annual Quran competition. Inshallah, this is going to be held on March 7th and 8th. These are open from grades kindergarten until 12th grade, and as well as adults 18 plus. Details and registration are available on the Mass KD WhatsApp and social media, inshallah. And lastly, we have is to support your masjids. This masjid, it runs on your donations, so please be sure to donate generously. Inshallah, after Tarawih today and after Jummah, we have a quick fundraiser. So give whatever you can and make sure you stay connected with the masjid through Facebook and WhatsApp. And inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept all of our rewards, inshallah.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدًا رسول الله حي على الصلاة الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا ومن سيئات أعمالنا من يهدي الله فهو المهتد ومن يضلل فلا هادي له وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له أنزل القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان وأشهد أن سيدنا ونبينا محمد عبد الله ورسوله صفيه وخليله الذي جاء بكتاب كالشمس في ضحاها وبسنة كالقمر إذا تلاها من تمسك بهما عاش في نور النهار إذا جلاها ومن أعرض عنهما ضل في ظلمات الليل إذا يغشاها أما بعد. We thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for gathering us here on this day of Jummah. For as we know from Jummah is kafarat as-sayyi'at. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making us from amongst those who are alive on this day. For as we know there are many who sat or prayed next to us in this very masjid who do not live on this day. And we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for making us from amongst the greatest of all ummahs, the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. And lastly, we thank Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for allowing us to reach this great month of Ramadan. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that as He has allowed us to reach this month, our fast, our worship, our reading of Quran, and us reaching Laylatul Qadr is all accepted. Qul Ameen. Ramadan is not a month of tradition. Ramadan is not a month of gathering. Ramadan is not a month of celebration. Ramadan is a month of reflection. Ramadan is a month of connection with the Quran which was revealed within it. And if we reflect on ourselves as humans, if we reflect on the state of the world in today's time, then we see the sad reality of قول الله عز وجل ظهر الفساد في البر والبحر بما كسبت أيدي الناس. That the face of this earth, the oceans and the plains have been plunged into darkness by that which what humanity has put forth. And this darkness is invisible darkness, rather the darkness of disobedience to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala.
Someone who's fighting to know, how can I wear hijab? Somebody who's fighting to just say his name proudly. Someone who's fighting with understanding or knowing, does Allah exist? Someone who's fighting on a daily basis to answer, why do I pray 5 times a day? And we ask ourselves, how do we reach such a stage? Ramadan is here, and we know how big our Muslim communities are, but we see the masajid, they're not as full as they used to be. We ask ourselves, how do we reach such a stage? We see what's going on around us, and rather than reflecting, rather than asking questions, we become sad, we become anxious, we become distressed and depressed. We turn away. We look at the life of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and we understand that there's nothing that you and I can go through in this life. There's no question that we can ask that can't be answered by looking at his life. We look at the Quran and we understand that that's the first and foremost way for us to understand and see the life of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam before going into the seerah. But the only time that you and I, we pick up the Quran recreationally is during this month. The first day comes and everybody, we have the intentions, I'm going to make one complete khatma every week. I'll complete the whole Quran in 4 weeks, 4 times. The third day passes and that enthusiasm is gone. We say, I'm going to come to the masjid, I'm going to enjoy Taraweeh, I'm going to pray Taraweeh 20 rak'ah every single night. The first week passes and the masajid are empty. With all the problems that were aforementioned that we are going through as a community, we go to the doctor, we go to the psychiatrist, we go to the psychologist, we come to the imam. But how many of us, when we wake up in the morning and we feel sad, we feel anxious, we feel far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, how many of us think, let me open the Quran? We look for all of these medicines, not understanding that the best and only medicine is the book that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sent down in this month. If you open this book and you see what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refers to it as, you wouldn't have any confusion. In the Quran, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He calls the Quran Nur, light. He calls the Quran Huda, guidance. He calls the Quran Shifa, healing. Is that not what you and I were looking for? What you and I were chasing and searching for on a daily basis? We don't understand the value of Quran, and so we don't know how to connect with it. We don't know how to utilize it. You look at the time when the Quran was revealed, and you will see the world was in a situation much like today. Which is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He speaks of the Quran, one of the purposes why it was sent, لِيُخْرِجَكُم مِّنَ الظُّلُمَاتِ إِلَى النُّورِ, to remove the masses from the darkness of ignorance, from the darkness of disobedience of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and to place them into the light of guidance of hidayah. The Quran was sent down at a time. We all know the ayah. وَإِذَا الْمَوْءُودَةُ سُئِلَتْ بِأَيِّ ذَنْبٍ قُتِلَتْ. It was sent to a people who measured their worth, who measured who they are as a man by their lineage. And if they were given what we count as the glad tiding of a baby girl, this would be a sign of their weakness, and so they would dispose of it. A narration from the book of Imam al-Bayhaqi, he says, a man one day he came to the Prophet ﷺ and he asked him, the message that you came with, the book which you preach from, I hear that by accepting it, it can salvate a soul from any sin which is committed. And so the Prophet ﷺ, he asked him, وَمَا بِكَ? What's wrong with you? What's going on? What happened? He tells him what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions to us in Surah Al-Nahl. وَإِذَا بُشِّرَ أَحَدُهُمْ بِالْأُنْثَى ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم. The average man of Al-Quraysh, if you were to go to him and you see him in the time when he's received the glad tidings of a baby girl, you won't see that he's smiling and happy and excited and joyous. You will see ظل وجهه مسودا وهو كظيم. A shadow has been cast over his face and he's become depressed. He's become sad. يتوارى من القوم من سوء ما بشر به. He begins to hide away from his people from the horrible news that he's received. And so this man, he tells the Prophet ﷺ, when I received the news of my baby girl, or when I received the news of my wife being pregnant, it was the most happy moment of my life. And then the child is born, and I find out that it's a female. And all of my happiness, all of my joy is gone. But I didn't have the strength or the power to dispose of her at that moment. I wasn't strong enough. And so she lived for a year or 2 years. Until finally, the whispers of his people, they became too much. And so he decided, on this day, I must get rid of her. And so he takes his baby girl out on their daily routine of having a walk out in the desert. And he sees a dried up well and he decides, this is the place that I will dispose of my daughter. And he tells the Prophet ﷺ, I reach out my hand over the mouth of this well and I turn it over. And from the moment that my daughter leaves my hand until she hits the bottom of that grave, of that well, what does she proclaim? Abata, 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 abata. My beloved, my trusted, my one and only father. Can me accepting this message salvate me from even this? And so you and I, we've been given a gift. You and I, we've been given something which value we can't measure. You and I, we've been given something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala himself, he says about Quran. And we hear this ayah all the time, but how many of us we reflect on it? That if the Quran was sent down on a mountain, and I say it in English so that everybody inshallah can understand. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل. If the Quran was sent down on a mountain, and you and I, we understand what a mountain is. We understand what it is in height and width. This mountain would crumble out of humility for the weight of the word of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You and I, the people who were given this blessing, where does it sit? In our house, in a room, on the shelf, collecting dust. But we ask, why am I sad? We ask, why am I far from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? We ask, why is my family not what I envisioned or dreamed for them to be? We all have goals of connecting with the Quran, but how do we do this? We say, I'm going to memorize the whole Quran. I'm going to memorize half the Quran. I'm going to memorize Surah Yasin and Surah Mulk. We say, I'm going to read this amount of Quran. How many times in Quran does Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala ask us, أَفَلَا يَقْرَؤُونَ الْقُرْآنَ أو أَفَلَا يَحْفَظُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? Nowhere. He asks us, أَفَلَا يَتَدَبَّرُونَ الْقُرْآنَ? And then what comes after? أَمْ عَلَى قُلُوبٍ أَقْفَالُهَا? When we stand in Salat al-Taraweeh behind the Imam, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed this community with two beautiful Qurra, and we beg Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, tonight help me to cry. Because we can't feel. Because we can't connect. We spend the whole year turned away from the Quran. And we expect that we come in Ramadan, and all of a sudden a miracle is going to happen. All of a sudden, that book, which is what we see it and call it, now I'm going to connect with it. Now I'm going to feel a relationship with it. How? A very formidable example for those of you who are married is like ignoring your wife for the whole year, except for 1 month. And then you come and you expect to receive kindness and love and comfort. It won't be there. And so we return to what I was speaking about in the beginning with the situation of our community today. We want to know what the solution is. It's Al-Quran. But how do we get there? The place that we sit in right now, Al-Masjid. Not many of us know the blessing of it. And speaking to you, as a young person who grew up in this country, the average American Muslim parent does not understand what the masjid does for their kids. And I'm going to switch at this point of the khutbah to focusing on this specific part, the youth. Why? We love and respect our ammus, but the reality is there is now a new generation. And if you were to go to the average teenager of today's time and you ask them, what do you want to be? Or rather, you ask them, what don't you want to be? All of us would be very sad to hear that many of them will say, a Quran teacher. Many of them will say, an imam. Many of them will say, a da'i. Why? Because there's no value that has been applied to those positions. We think, if I'm going to become a hafiz, I have to go to boarding school, and that happens because I misbehaved and my dad wanted to punish me. We think, if I'm going to go overseas and study so I can become an imam or a da'i, that means I wasn't intellectual enough to do well in school to become a doctor and engineer, so that's my last choice. Where do we expect Islam to be in the next 20 to 25 years if this is how our youth think? Where do we expect Islam to be in the next 20 to 25 years if our elders don't see the importance of these things? And so the masjid is not simply a place that we come to pray. The masjid is not simply a place that we send our kids to for babysitting. The masjid is not simply a place for all the youth who are here. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you for being here. The masjid is not simply a place that we come to ball, to see our friends and to chill. The masjid is our second home. And within a home, what do you receive? You receive comfort. You receive comfort. You receive wisdom. You receive nourishment. Your intention for coming to a place like this, your intention for supporting a place like this, your intention for seeing the importance of the masjid is because you and I, we understand that without it, we will not have success in passing the baton of Islam from the previous generation to the generation that is coming. Inshallah, tonight I will speak more on this, but just to open our eyes to the situations of today. Are we as a Muslim community aware of how many Muslim youth in the last 5 years who have committed suicide? Are we as a community aware of how many Muslim youth, our sisters, who were raised upon hijab, removed it? And this is no blame to them. This is no hatred towards them, because we understand it's not something that's easy. And we understand that we made the mistake of not giving you enough support, but it's a reality. Do we understand, are we aware of how many Muslim youth have left Islam? And they didn't just leave Islam. They left Islam and they became an atheist. Somebody who was born with kalimat, La ilaha illallah Muhammad Rasulullah, now he believes, wa na'udhu billah, there can't be an existence of God. And if you hear some of the reasons, inside you would laugh, but in reality you should cry. I have met youth who have left Islam and who are now atheists. And when you ask them why, they will tell you, when I was young and I used to go to the masjid, an ammu would make fun of or pick on the way that I'm dressed. An ammu would make fun of or insult me because of how my hair was cut. An ammu would do such and such. And so I said, how can I be attached to such a place? How can I feel comfortable in such a place when this is how I'm treated? And so they associated the maltreatment that came out of the lack of wisdom from an elder with the deen. And that's completely incorrect. How many of us are aware of the amount of sisters who are having children outside of marriage? Because we make the haram very easy and we make the halal extremely hard. We have fathers who are requesting $50, $60, $70, $100,000 mahr. How many of us are aware of the situations of our communities? And then when you have somebody stand in front of you and they say, support your masjid, you say, you said this last Friday and the Friday before and the Friday before. We get it. You don't get it. The masjid is more deserving of your support than the doctor that you pay thousands of dollars to fix the mind of your child. The masjid is much more deserving of your support than the person that you spend thousands of dollars to fix your marriage. Do you know how sad it is to see that on social media this Ramadan there have been so many conversations started saying, why are Huffaz being paid to lead Taraweeh? Why does the Imam think he's deserving of a bonus because he's leading Taraweeh? It's just Taraweeh. He's just reading Quran. He's supposed to do this anyway. Do you know how much of a disgrace it is hearing this? We are not aware of what a person goes through when he goes to study Quran, when he leaves his family, when he sits tirelessly hours in the night, in the day, memorizing the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Not because he's expecting in 10 years I'm going to make money. No. Because he loves the Quran, because he connected with the Quran, because he felt the Quran is what I need in my life. And this person, after all of that dedication and time and sacrifice, he comes and he stands in front of his community. And they say, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one who's going to reward you. Of course Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to reward you. But I'm willing to pay the person who's going to come to my house and remodel it, whatever he asks. I'm willing to buy my wife a bag that costs $15,000. But the shaykh who stands in front of me, and through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by blessing him with a good recitation, he makes me feel good. He reminds me of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. That person, he's not deserving of anything. He should drive a 1995 Toyota Corolla. And this is, the sign of him being an obedient servant. Ya akhwani, if we do not wake up today, if we do not wake up now, if we do not understand how far away we are from the deen, within the next few years, within the next few decades, we will see the ummah is nearly non-existent. The knowledge of Quran is barely there. أقول ما سمعتم واستغفر الله لي ولكم ولسائر المسلمين فاستغفروه إنه هو الغفور الرحيم. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله وعلى آله وصحبه ومن والاه. What I end the khutbah with is the tests and the trials and the tribulations that you and we go through is not for nothing. And our reward for them is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But you and we need to understand that what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave us, al-Islam, is not something that is cheap. And the reward of being a Muslim, which is al-Jannah, which inshallah we will all attain, is not something that's cheap. Imagine that when the message of Islam first came down, and the Prophet Muhammad, who was once known as As-Sadiq wal-Amin, now he's being called Kadhabun Ashir. He's being called Sahir. He's being called Majnoon. The people who are following him, who are entering into the folds of Islam, they're being oppressed, they're being boycotted, they're being beaten, they're being tortured, their lives are being taken. At that moment, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He poses a question. أَمْ حَسِبْتُمْ أَن تَدْخُلُوا الْجَنَّةِ? Do you think that it's possible that you will enter or attain Jannah without the example of those who came before you afflicting you? Ya Rab, what afflicted them? مَسَّتْهُمُ الْبَأْسَاءُ وَالضَّرَّاءُ وَزُلْزِلُوا. They were afflicted by trial and by tribulation to the extent that they were shook. To the extent حتى يقول الرسول والذين آمنوا معه متى نصر الله. It shook them to the point of asking and wondering, when will we receive the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? And many of us, we look at our community, we look at our family, we look at our children, and this is the question that is posed. Understand that you cannot and you will not be able to attain the sweetness of Al-Jannah without striving for it. Take this month of Ramadan as your opportunity to turn back to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to reconnect to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to reconnect to the Quran, and to do so with the intention that when this Ramadan is over, it's not going to be my boot camp is done and I'll do this again next year. Every single good thing that I started doing now, I will continue because I don't know if I'm going to make it to next Ramadan. And like that, inshallah, we will attain the reward that we're all chasing after. I'm pretty sure that many of you are aware of why I stand in front of you today. The announcement was made that inshallah after Jummah we will have a short fundraiser. And the portion of my khutbah mentioning the value of the masjid was just to open all of our hearts and our minds to something that is a reality. Many times we feel a fatigue, many times we feel this annoyance at the word fundraiser. But let me explain something to you. Whether you and I raise our hand or open our pocket, whether we give silently or openly, the house of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will always be supported by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The true question is, which one of us would like the honor? Which one of us would answer the call of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to be from amongst those who support the masjid? When Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asks, مَنْ ذَا الَّذِي يُقْرِضُ اللَّهَ قَرْضًا حَسَنًا, who would like to give Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala a good loan? We are all aware. Allah, He is Ar-Razzaq. Does He need anything from us? Of course not. But we give, and what we give is held. فَيُضَاعِفَهُ لَهُ أَضْعَافًا كَثِيرًا. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He takes what is given and He multiplies it. And that multiplication of blessings, we see it in the dunya and we need it in the akhirah. Ya akhwani, this masjid, subhanallah, my time being here in Houston and seeing how the community has progressed and seeing how things have grown is why I stand in front of you on this day. Because it's one thing to speak about something from what you heard, and it's another thing to speak about something which what you've seen with your own eyes. And I'm pretty sure that many of you who pray here, who are regular here, you have the same feeling. And it's a feeling that makes you feel good. That I know my masjid, the people who are volunteering, the people who are running the masjid, their goal, their concern is how can we serve the community. Imagine that every single person here who contributed to the school that's outside, that you will all see today, you put your money, you put your hard-earned work into something, and today you will see the physicality of it. And in the months and years to come, you will see how the youth of this community benefit from it. So when I stand in front of you after salah, and I mention a few things, don't think, do I have the ability? Maybe I'll do it tomorrow. Inshallah, later on in the month. Think of the ayah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala where He tells us, وَسَارِعُوا إِلَى مَغْفِرَةٍ مِّن رَبِّكُمْ وَجَنَّةٍ. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He could use any word here. وَسَارِعُوا, and compete, race, strive, fight. For what? Forgiveness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and the reward of Al-Jannah. And right after, who does He mention? الَّذِينَ يُنْفِقُونَ فِي السَّرَّاءِ, the one who gives in the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in times of ease. And all of us, when it's time, when we have a lot of money in our bank account, when we have a bonus, when we have a raise, it's easy to give. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also mentions what? وَالضَّرَّاءِ, and in times of difficulty. And I'm positive there's not a person here who has given to the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in a moment of difficulty except that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought him ease after. And so, knowing that your masjid is in need, knowing that your masjid is transparent enough to share the need with you and to share the progress of what your money does, don't shy away from the opportunity. Don't leave the responsibility to the person next to you. There's a funny story that one day a king, he comes in, he says, We've been stricken by poverty. The community, we have no food, we have no money. And so I'm requesting tomorrow, a big hole has been dug. Every single person should bring as much milk as he has, and we'll pour it in there, and everybody collectively will drink from it. And so one person, he says, well, I don't have too much milk, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring water. Everybody else is going to bring milk. They come the next day, and what do they have? A hole full of water. Why? Because I assumed that my brother, he's going to put. And he assumed that his brother's going to put. And she assumed that her sister's going to put. And then nobody put. So race. Make your intention that you are the first to give, and feel the glad tidings of your brothers following you into khair. إن الله قد أمرنا بأمر عزيز حينما قال إن الله وملائكته يصلون على النبي يا أيها الذين آمنوا صلوا عليه وسلموا تسليما اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين اللهم أعز الإسلام والمسلمين وأذل الشرك والمشركين ودمر أعداءك أعداء الدين اللهم انصر إخواننا وأخواتنا في فلسطين اللهم انصر إخواننا وأخواتنا في فلسطين وفي غزة وفي السودان وفي لبنان وفي حول الأرض يا أرحم الراحمين اللهم اجمعنا أمامك يوم القيامة سالمين غانمين كما جمعتنا في هذا المسجد المبارك وأنت يا أخي أقم الصلاة.
الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله. الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. يا أيها الذين آمنوا كتب عليكم الصيام كما كتب على الذين من قبلكم لعلكم تتقون أياما معدودات فمن كان منكم مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر وعلى الذين يطيقونه فدية طعام مسكين فمن تطوع خيرا فهو خير له وأن تصوموا خير لكم إن كنتم تعلمون. شهر رمضان الذي أنزل فيه القرآن هدى للناس وبينات من الهدى والفرقان فمن شهد منكم الشهر فليصمه ومن كان مريضا أو على سفر فعدة من أيام أخر يريد الله بكم اليسر ولا يريد بكم العسر ولتكملوا العدة ولتكبروا الله على ما هداكم ولعلكم تشكرون. وإذا سألك عبادي عني فإني قريب أجيب دعوة الداع إذا دعان فليستجيبوا لي وليؤمنوا بي لعلهم يرشدون. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله الله أكبر.
الله أكبر. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أحل لكم ليلة الصيام الرفث إلى نسائكم هن لباس لكم وأنتم لباس لهن علم الله أنكم كنتم تختانون أنفسكم فتاب عليكم وعفى عنكم فالآن باشروهن وابتغوا ما كتب الله لكم وكلوا واشربوا حتى يتبين لكم الخيط الأبيض من الخيط الأسود من الفجر ثم أتموا الصيام إلى الليل ولا تباشروهن وأنتم عاكفون في المساجد تلك حدود الله فلا تقربوها كذلك يبين الله آياته للناس لعلهم يتقون. الله. سمع الله لمن حمده.
الله أكبر. الله الله أكبر. الله
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.